Have you ever been a part of a French conversation or speaking in French class and you've needed to use the Passé Composé? You have all but 2 seconds to figure out what word you want to use, what's the past participle of that word, whether you're supposed to use avoir or êtres, and then how to conjugate that. And then you realize that your 2 seconds are up and you still haven't said anything, so instead your brain just kind of crashes and now everyone's waiting around in an awkward silence for you to finish your sentence? Yeah, that sucks and that's not fun at all. But it doesn't have to be that way. Because in this video, I'm going to give you 3 ways to help you remember which verbs use êtres in the Passé Composé. Ready? C'est parti! Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à Koala Hugs. Je m'appelle Kristen, and if you're looking for help with learning French, English, tips on language learning in general, or just an all-around fun time, then be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Now, if you're trying to tackle the Passé Composé or a few other tenses in French, knowing when to use avoir and when to use êtres with verbs is really important because both of these are what we call auxiliary verbs. An auxiliary verb is a helping verb because it helps us form certain tenses. Some of the most common tenses that have this in French are the plus que parfait, the conditionnel passé, and you guessed it, the passé composé. The nice thing here is once you know which verbs go with avoir and which verbs go with êtres in one tense, it's the same rules for the other tenses that require auxiliary verbs. So just know that, but for this video, we'll be focusing on the passé composé. So avoir is used with verbs that describe a type of movement or action, like jumping, singing, dancing, running. While êtres is used with all reflexive verbs and verbs that describe a change in place, aka these verbs right here. If it's not reflexive or one of these types of verbs, then it's probably going to be used with avoir. So the first way to remember this list of words that all use êtres is with the acronym Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp. So you've got this lovely doctor and his lovely wife, and each one of the letters in their name stands for one of these verbs. Now this is something I really wish I knew and had when I was first learning the Passé Composé, because it would have made it so much easier to remember all of these words. So the second way to remember all of these verbs is kind of a two-parter, and it includes a timeline. So a timeline is helpful because it makes sure that you really understand that all of these verbs are a change in place. And the better you understand these verbs, the easier it will be for you to remember them. As you can see, most of these words have an opposite word that go with them. So I can come, I can go, I can enter or exit. Honestly, if you want, you can look at this chart or timeline long enough until you remember all the words. That's what I did. Or if you like pairs, then you can remember the word advent. Each letter stands for one of the words, but each word has its pair, its opposite word. So we've got arriver et partir, descendre et monter, venir et aller, entrer et sortir, naître et mourir, tomber et rester, and our one extra verb, which is retourner. Poor guy, he's all alone. So the third way to remember which words use êtres is, in my opinion, the best one for any of you out there who are visual learners, and that is the Maison d'être. Imagine you have a house and it's teeming with life. You have people coming, going, entering, exiting, leaving, and returning. You have people passing each other as they go up and descend the stairs. People clearly live here, so they reste, they stay here. And maybe the house is really old, so it's seen several births and even some deaths. And you have that one cousin who's really weird. So there's that time they were doing who knows what up on the roof and they fell off? Yeah, he's fine now, but it was still weird. But my point is that if you can think of any of these words, if you can imagine them happening in that house, these words are words we use with êtres. So if you choose one of these 3 ways to remember which verbs use êtres, as well as knowing that all reflexive verbs use êtres, then really that's half the battle. Because if you have a verb that's not one of those, you're probably 9 times out of 10 using avoir. There are still a few other verbs out there that use êtres instead of avoir, but they're not really commonly used. So it's easier to just look them up when you are going to use them and see if they use êtres or avoir. So out of these 3 ways to remember verbs that go with êtres, my favorite is Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp. Because 1, I don't know why, it's just easy for me to remember. And 2, I feel like it covers the majority of the verbs that go with êtres. But I want to hear from you. What have you used to remember êtres? Is it on this list or is it something else? I'd love to hear it because other people watching this video might find something else that really clicks with them and helps them figure out how to use these words successfully. So please be sure to share it down in the comments. And if somehow you've been watching this video this whole time and not knowing what in the world the Passé Composé is, then be sure to check out this video I made on it. I break down in depth everything you need to know about it, from what it is, when and why we use it, and I also go over how to conjugate êTRE and avoir for the Passé Composé, which is something I didn't do in this video. Also, if you want to know more about the past participle, the participe passé, which is a huge component of the Passé Composé, then be sure to look out for my next video because it's going to be covering that. Which also means if you haven't subscribed yet, now would be a good time so you don't miss it. And with that, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, you enjoyed it, you even learned something, then please smash that like button, share this video with anyone else you know who's learning the Passé Composé, leave a comment, and I'll be seeing you real soon. Tout à l'heure!